Tene ta ngarange togung ke kapsala cherto namba sanje pa tawe ge nimbon rabota sanje ji ta ngama tambe chu chung kolo korwe ge nimbon rabote tene shoyen la tene ta teya cherto tene sanje chomden de ji chuchung kolo kor gupi ki junsen tang tene te ji ne sanji ji tembaran boche te so tang ji to darwe ki junsen te kandri jiri se na tene ta namba sanji pe ke tawe nyingbo te la cherdo ji ten che kham de dewa te na ne miksal to tene ta tambi chu kando darwe ki ne te la dewa tang hiwegi chirla dambi chu sunga re la tene te tabu tene chirdo jiten che kham dewa ta miksal ke dambi chu konda tarwegi net na la dewa ta hiwa njungi ke tapte kandrit na wari se na tene konzo suhi na ya tamchi ji zo tene janchu ji san rinpo che te ji gopa ta janchu ji san rinpo che te kal chewa inbi junse sunga re.
Tonight I'm going to speak to you about the essence of the Buddhist view in general and the essence of the Buddha's teachings. The reason why the Buddha taught and the reason why his teachings subsequently came to spread throughout the world is that the fundamental concern of Buddhism, and therefore the essence of the Buddhist outlook, is concerned with well-being and peace in the world in general. Now, the principal method through which Buddhists have attempted to achieve world peace, and especially bring about peace and well-being in places where Buddhism is practiced, is the cultivation of what is called the mind of awakening, or bodhicitta. And this mind of awakening is considered very precious and of utmost importance.
Tene ta te yang janchu chi sem senki te ta namba sanji pe chuki tomo ma iba ji re la tene te ta ngara so palki rabo je la juri ga na kande ji kogi ware se na somba zangpo tan tempa je kogi ware la tene somba zangpo tan tempa te yang tene chitang ke me suhi na ya somba zangpo tan tempa yore Yore de yinaya samba sangpotan temba de nguni ge mela pen tongkin tene yin sulaya nepa menkin ge samba sangpo hirap tang temba jay de la ta tangbi chu chu on tse na niji yendan la mi sur hirap ji zozong la mi sur sung yore la tene niji ge on tse na senjin sulayinaya nepa mepa hirap ji on tse na 디게 생긴 솔라요 네바 메바 세바데 은네 게 생긴라 네바 메바제 sombasambo chepe 열대라 네바 메바제다 sombasambo 세발라 때니 yen달라 네바 메바제 데네 니지에 대야 지당가 온드세나 데네 강가 다 나란서 지팅지 칸라 예베게 메인로아 대yen달라 메인로아 좀 마인바 tene dunduge jene sotoba tene dunduge jene sotoba la ya je senje chenbuge to sotoba da senje chunchungge sotoba da 간ri ji yina ya tene ganga je semla semda lula chorwa ye ba denzola dunghal meparsibe 탑제 da tene 대견도 산라 교 샘라 교히 매바지 세베가 탑 장보다 덴바 다 디단도 som바 장보다 덴바 라이나야 som바 장보다 덴바제다 예이나야 som바 장보다 덴바라 께버시베가 탑지 세바데 베 가르침보 송요하래
The term, the mind of awakening, is a term that is particular to Buddhism, and in more common language we would simply call it benevolence. Now everyone has some degree of benevolence, but for our benevolence to be effective, it needs to include the aspect of discernment or wisdom. Now, in Buddhist terms, this mind of awakening is therefore said to have two aspects. The aspect of compassion, which means, or which is focused equally on all beings, and the aspect of discernment, which is focused on the achievement of supreme awakening. In general, however, by discernment, we mean that whatever you do with the motivation of benevolence must not only help the immediate or principal object of your benevolence, but it must also be skillful or discerning enough so that it harms no other and, if possible, helps everyone. The aspect of compassion here means unlimited compassion. That is to say, feeling compassion for all beings, all human beings and all animals, all large animals and even very small animals. In short, to feel compassion for any being that is capable of conscious experience, that has a mind and a body. And the aspiration which comes through compassion is the aspiration that all of these beings be free from suffering, physical suffering and mental misery as well. Now, the principal method through which these are cultivated is the cultivation of one's own benevolence and attempting to inspire benevolence in others as well. And through emphasizing these cultivations, Buddhism seeks to promote the happiness of all beings.
Tene ta te ta wuge somba sangpo te yang ta somba sangpo changchuk sem te yang pelwar chepe ge tap ta tene gambar chepe ge mengo ndo tene sanji chi song yo re la tene te yang jitang ge wang du xie na tene zo kare gu ge yo re se na tene somba sangpo te jambata niji gogewa jambata niji te tene te ya jerdo semchi tamchi la yore besena ya yore te yendo misal ke main roa tamchi la ya jambata niji yore te yendo la ngaranso ta tarwe ke tambe chulu go onde sena chulu suina ya tene 잠바탄 힌지티 배 갈침보리서 강가가 자침보 남겨 와라 대견도라 단다 넘버 산지비 갈침보 나와라 믹살게 만다와게 체슈인다보데 가리요아레세나 되네 잠바탄 힌지 세바데 제 세메바숨기요라 넘버 산지비게 잠바탄 힌지티 지다게 잠바탄 힌지 간디지레세나 되네 샘데 다 강가라 som바상보던 덴베고네 샘 히와 돌와 나잘당 저도 고네 내샘당 식sob라소바 매바제게 다 som바탄 덴바텔라 잠바탄 힌지 세게요라라 되네 대야 세니 도모마인바데 세메바숨기요라 세메바숨디 배 자침보지 송아리베스나 자침보지 송아마레 오나 간디지 레세나 나란소라 치탕게 잠바탄 힌지 요아레 때 있는 테라 초제라 때지 잠바탄 힌지 예데바라보제다 초제라 대섬 잠바탄 힌지 메데바제게 드니 체인라보제 요아레 디 펜라 잠바탄 힌지 요아레 디체라 잠바탄 힌지 요마레 세겐라보 다 가히게 메인로라 잠바탄 힌지 예바 돈로라 잠바탄 힌지 메바 대견도 가히게 되네 다 단다 페르나 돈론다보제 이나 되네 돈롤라야 되네 껌라예 돈롤라 잠바던 힌지 열라 출라네비 돈롤라 잠바던 힌지 메반다보 다 딘딘다 맨다 가히 랑그 출라 잠바던 힌지 열라 yin dala sobal라 잠바던 힌지 메반다보 딘데 용기 요아레티 이나야 남바 산지베게 잠바던 힌지데 간디지 고게 요아레세나 디니 데라 세메바데 강가 수이나야 되네 대완 대바다 둥하면데 바인 비치나 되네 잠바던 힌지데 강가를 고바제 숨기와래
The Buddha taught many instructions for increasing or developing benevolence or bodhicitta and for cultivating it through the practice of meditation. Essentially, what benevolence consists of is love and compassion. Now, all beings innately possess some degree of love and compassion, including all human beings. And all religious traditions teach the importance of love and compassion as well. What distinguishes the Buddhist approach to love and compassion is that Buddhist love and compassion is limitless. Now, we all understand the function of love and compassion as pacifying the anger and jealousy and pride that we experience. But what makes the Buddhist approach to this distinct from others is that it is utterly without limit. Now, limitless love and limitless compassion does not simply mean very big or vast love and compassion. It means impartial. Usually, when we have love and compassion, these are partial. They are limited. We feel love and compassion for these beings and not for those beings. We might feel compassion for humans, but not for animals. Or we might feel compassion for some animals, such as land animals, and not for others, such as sea animals. Or we might feel compassion for our friends, but not for our enemies. The Buddhist approach to love and compassion is to make them utterly impartial. And this is based on the empathetic understanding that all beings without exception equally wish to be happy and equally wish to be free of suffering.
되네 다 대답게 께도 되네 잠바던 힌지다 덴바데 생긴 강가라베 갈침보려라 대나네 믹살도 당가라서 히랍당 덴바다 옌덴당 덴바 되네 메인로알라베 잠바던 힌지 예바제 갈침보임바 잠바던 힌지 예바테야 단다 휴바 난긴게 남바 상지베게 세니당 덴바 다 니ering 초동메 베게 되네 세메 베게 잠바던 힌지 예바테 베 갈쳐와 대 갈치와 대야 지당게 나란서 드네 지팅제 컴데 대발라야 강 갈치게 요아레세나 대답이 참바든 이제 갈치게 요아레라 대견돌라 단다 당 나란서 룸바치게 온드세나 안다보 드네 마사치게 온드세나 안다보 이나야 강 갈치게 요아레세나 세메비 참바단 이제데 배 갈치게 요아레라 티처나 드네 잠바탄 hinji cer tu gu pa che ta de na ni mixal to tini che chu che la ye pa to chu che la me pe sambatan hinji ma yin pa chu tham che la chi pa na hin ke tini sambatan hinji te pe kal che
Love and compassion are essential for all beings, but especially it is essential that human beings who are so intelligent and resourceful possess these. It is also important that the love and compassion we generate be impartial. It is through the presence of impartial love and compassion that one can generate a state of well-being and peace in the world, or within any one country, or within any one family. So love and compassion are absolutely necessary for us, and especially we need them to be impartial.
tene ta te ta bu ge chambatan hinji te kandri si ne ta mepa la yepa te chimbo la pelwar si bi tap te ta te sanji ji ngaran so chitang kandri go ge yore sanji ge tap kandri nang yore se na tene semi ye si sang yore la semi ye na ne tene 당보 간리제 광국이 와르세나 tene chitang 온도 세나 가란스 고렘다르도 세나 앙랑 이반다 보텔라 계기 요아레데 이나야 가란스 냠린 제베캅라 당보다 보텔라 동냠 세메 강구 숨비 와레라 tene 동냠 세메데 강구 비기 준세데 칸디지레세나 가란스로 공도 히바타르도 chitang 샴바다니 요아레 jambatang hinji yore te yinay tel te churi yore la churi yepa te churi te hewe ge tabla kare goge yore se na tene yinchi minchi tene tongyam se ne cho che la hachang ge tsewa yepa yung mayin pa cho che la mende pe hedang tang nesem yepa yung mayin pa ganga jikpa nang hing ge tangbo tongyam te yung tongyam tse me pa te 강가 카히라 동념 임바 카히라 동념 마임바 되는 나란속에 자다 니다 메다 돈로 심진제 레이스도 바통지라 셈 초동메베게 되는 동념 세메바텔라 담보 검나 되는 동념대 담보 검발라 레야 라와요레라 되는 동념대 검나 텔라테네 셈데 되는 추제라 착반다보다 수제라 당완다보다 매바 드니베 희완다보 용어이 비쳤나 대답에 갈쳐래
As for the methods through which love and compassion can be generated when they are not particularly present and can be increased once they have been generated, among the things taught about this by the Buddha, principle is the practice of what are called the Four Immeasurables. And these are four attitudes that one cultivates. Now, in the usual enumeration of their sequence, the fourth, equanimity or impartiality, is usually numbered as the fourth. But when one actually cultivates them as separate practices or states of mind, one must begin with impartiality first. The reason is that we already possess some degree of love and compassion, but what limits this is its partiality. So the first thing we need to do in expanding our love and compassion is to get rid of the partiality which limits or distorts them. So therefore, the first thing to be cultivated is the state of impartiality, which here means an attitude of equanimity toward beings in the sense of not being attached to some or preferential to some, and not being averse to others. And this attitude needs to be cultivated in a manner that includes all living beings, both human and animals. This is easy to cultivate, And through its cultivation, one's mind gradually becomes free of attachment to some beings and aversion to others, which produces a state of mental peace.
Tene ta te tabu ge tonyam se me ba te rang sem ji te ne yapo je som tupa te tujun de ma ji ba tende ji chong ne tene ta te tai ne kare gu ge yore se na tene senji dunghal ta demba la dunghal te trandik ge tene ni ji tang senji dewa ta medemba de nam la dewa ta dende ge chamba te pe galche ge yore la tini te la chamba ta hinje namba ni re chamba ta hinje namba ni bo te khande ji go ge yore se na te la ya ta temba zo pu sung ji cham den de ji thomo main be chechu la tene ta seni da bo je song yore la ngarang chol chamba go ge re 인지 구그리 센진라 잠바지 구 인지지 구 수와자 마인바 되네 센진라 잠바 구그래라 센진라 잠바당 템비고네 센진라 대화 구그래라 대화 구바티 간디 구그레세나 대화 구바티 땅바근 되게요 말에 대위 조디 구기요 되네 센진 탐지라 동할때 매바치 구기요래라 동할때 매버 시베게 탑데 간디치 고기 와레세나 드네 둥하게 주어디 매바치 고기 와레
When the cultivation of immeasurable impartiality is stable enough that this attitude is continually present in your mind, and you do not forget it, then you can move on to the cultivation of actual love and compassion. Compassion in this case refers to the wish that beings be free of suffering and the causes of suffering. So compassion is principally directed at beings who are suffering and is the aspiration that they be free of it. Love here is defined as the wish that beings possess happiness and its causes. So love is principally directed at beings who lack happiness or circumstances of happiness. Now, the cultivation of love and compassion, according to the Buddha's explanation, and it is this that makes his explanation particularized or uncommon, is not simply the attitude we should feel love and we should feel compassion, nor is it even simply the aspiration that beings be happy and free of suffering, because it includes the recognition that for beings to be happy, they must cultivate or accumulate the causes of happiness. And for beings to be free of suffering, the causes of their suffering must be eradicated. Therefore, the principal focus in these aspirations is that beings possess the causes of happiness and be free from the causes of suffering.
Tene ta teacher na ta tanda devi ki jyote yepache ta dunghal ki jyote mepache la tene kandichi go gi yore se na chitanga on de se na tene ngarancho senchin chinten ke sembate hiwa tene hiwa tan tembache semti hiwa tan tulwa che chong na tene tela tene ganga dunghal ki jyoti mepa devi ki jyoti demba tene teya perna ngarancho me njitin te dewar sepa la tene chitang tanda chenne jinjitin tene sa do shen chola sopa tawa ji yinaya chitang ngarancho namba sanji pe tawa la te la sen mepa pembo segi warete yinaya telaya nepata kengi kasi che shena tini tige nepate ngaranso senchin kanga medewe jorun rogi warela teacher na che sa do re to hen la so ba yinaya tini tela che sem ge ni chambata ni ji go ni che tenzo la nepa mepa tenzo yabo yeba jay ta tene ta te yendula ngaranzo nang sem yinaya tene ganga ge sem te tabu ge jay control tong tene sem la tene rewa chenpo rabo jay mahimpa ganga sem hiwa ta tulwa jay se na tene ranghin ji ganga deji tang tenpa yung mahimpa chir na dunghal tang dunghal ji jo tang trawa dewa tang dewi jo tang tenpa sumbi ware.
Therefore, the principal focus here is determining what constitute causes of happiness and bringing about their accomplishment, and what constitute causes of suffering and bringing about their absence or eradication. Now, if your mind is in a state of peace, if your mind has been tamed, then through achieving that state, you have eradicated causes of suffering and you have brought about causes of happiness. There are many factors of well-being in our lives. For example, in the context of this human world, the external environment is very important. The state of the earth and stones and water and trees and so on. We may regard, as Buddhists do, these things as inanimate in themselves, but nevertheless, if the environment is harmed, this affects the welfare and therefore the happiness of sentient beings. So therefore, we need to aspire that the environment be well maintained. But we also need to work with our minds internally. And we need to, in order to be happy, maintain a state of mind that is free from such states of agitation as anger or obsession. And by achieving a state of mind that is like that, we come to accumulate the cause of happiness and avoid the causes of suffering.
Tene ta te tabu ge chamba ta ni je gomba te pe nu ba tang tem ba ta tene phem ba tang tem ba la tene te tabu ge dewa ta devi dewa ta ten gu ba che ta dewa ta tem ba la devi jo ta ten gu ba che ta dungal ta thal gu ba che ta dungal ta thal la dungal ji jo ta thal gu ba te tem ba te pe thap che par ta pha pa re tene thap che par ta pha pa yin be cher na tela tene tin drevela kari yung gre se na gawache me ba yung yore gawache me ba yung gi junsen khande re se na cherdo chamba ta ni je chuma te ya hira yapore te ina ya kapkala ni je senke te thap du pun ro yore la thap du bu khande yore se na perna meje na tige me de dog ngal 다 디게 메텔라 니제다 덴바 디게 메텔라 타니 페 니제 니제두 디 둥할 레차프게 탑데 가야 마죠 드니 나라야 셈바죠 동할 드니 파주데야 동할 나라 니제다 덴키데야 동할 데바나 힌지 드니 데지 탑 좁은라고 용기 와래라 드니 단다 조부송지 점된데 지숨베게 탑데시나 단다 동할 탑 잘베게 탑제 여나야롱 여나 동할다 trave게 탑시 메나 디 동할다 trave게 동할지 조당 trave게 탑디시나 근데 내가 동할다 말하나야 마음발로 동할리 잡도 받지 용기 와래라 대전도 대화도 medin 받지 있나 대화도 medin 받대라 다니 단다 찌시는 대화를 꽤 토바 용거래라 단다 대화를 꽤 마토바 있나야 대위 조라 꽤나 마음발로 대위 dewaatan tenpa che la kyo topa che yunga yuwaarela di charna chambatan hi je te la tene sempa chua tepa nrapo tang thap dau tepa nrapo ma yinpa pe gawaatan chowa tangi ti senchin te dunga le chap thuk re senchin te dunga le chap thup song gongsa te dewala kyo thuk re gongsa te dewala kyo thup song song peke tene sen la gawaatan chowa che wa yinpi chirna gawa tse me pa sumri yuwaare.
The cultivation of love and compassion is very powerful and very beneficial, and especially when it includes an explanation of the importance of cultivating the causes of happiness and avoiding the causes of suffering, it is extraordinary. The result of the approach to love and compassion, which is concerned with the causes of happiness and the causes of suffering, is that it leads to the state which is, in this context, the fourth immeasurable empathetic joy. Now, while we all know that compassion is wonderful, we also know that sometimes it can be a state of misery or sadness. Sometimes you observe someone suffering, for example, when someone is seriously ill, and because you cannot remove their suffering, your compassion causes you to suffer as well. In that case, the only apparent result of the state of compassion is that instead of one person being miserable, two are miserable. The Buddhist approach in this regard is to do what you can and to work with causes. For example, in a situation where you can immediately remove someone's suffering, you of course do so. But even if you cannot do that, you can remove causes of their future suffering. And in situations where you can bring about someone's immediate happiness, you of course do so. But even when you cannot do that, you can always provide causes for their future happiness. If you take this approach to love and compassion, these states never become futile. And never becoming futile, they never become sterile or miserable, because there is always something you can do to bring about benefit to others. And this brings a state of satisfaction rather than depression, because you always know that you have brought about someone's happiness, or at least the causes of their future happiness. You have removed someone's suffering, or at least the causes of their future suffering. The state of satisfaction or joy that is produced by that is what is called immeasurable joy.
Tene ta teacher na ta tanda ngaranzo ge somo tangya ta jangya de la kande nangi warise na seme pa yes tangbo tangyam seme ge je ni ba jamba seme ge ni je sumba de ni je seme ta yeba de Devonda Hotela, the Ranlaya Pentonjuma, Yenlaya Pentonjuma, Cherna, Gawazi Mepate, Tetabuge, Semi Ye, Gambala Tene, Tene, Ran Sosuke Sembayanaya, Hiwata Tulwa, Sembata Hiwata Tulwa Latene, Yenlaya Pentopa, Tejendo, Tige, Ta Nyamlin Te, Pelna, Tene. 공사 카히자 마인바 센진 mambola 펜토로와 임비처나 되네 다데 접선지 점된데 지숨비게 따위게 연다보다 되네 단다 나란서 다 지당게 남바상지 비추 생긴데 이게 냠린시 그비게 존센다 남바상지 비추에 벨 그비게 존센다보데 다 된데지 센진 탐지라 대화도 희위기 쳇라 된데 숨기요래.
In that way, the thinking and the actual practice concerned with the cultivation of love and compassion is through what are called these four immeasurables. Initially, you cultivate immeasurable impartiality, and then on that basis, immeasurable love, immeasurable compassion, and finally achieve the result of these, which is immeasurable joy. And the joy comes, as I mentioned, from the satisfaction of knowing that you are actually benefiting not only yourself, but also others. One result of this is that your own mind becomes peaceful and tame. And having a peaceful and tamed mind automatically causes you to be beneficial to others. But through this type of approach, your benefit for others is not limited to a few. You actually benefit many. Therefore, this is the real basis of the Buddhist outlook, the reason for Buddhist practice and the reason why Buddhism has spread throughout the world, because of its basic concern with the benefiting and accomplishing the happiness of all beings.
Tene tange dogon desam shugiyama. Tene ta tanda jerdo ndana la tene che namba sanji bi chugol huba mangbo pe deya kahi pe sata rimbo ni pe kahi ta nibo ni pe na ya susu ge leka ta shawa tenzo karchembo tenzo yukni tambi chugi che do pepa tende mangbo pepa la tene che namba 다 담비추라 대바좀 그바나니 페발라 투지체 휴지체 당 되네 다 대견들라 도공 다 지당가 미망라 주히 베가슬라 단다 남바상지바 임바당 남바상지바 마임바 되네 단다 안데로 단다 총체 토니부게 메텐조 망보 ndana ngarange lejer hiepala niembala pepala laya tuji chihugi.
I'm going to stop with that for this evening. Many of you here are committed Buddhist practitioners, some of whom have come from a great distance to hear these explanations and practice together. And in order to do so, you've temporarily cast aside all your other activities and responsibilities, and I'd like to express my appreciation to all of you for this, and my gratitude to you for your devotion to the Dharma. Also, since this is a public talk this evening, I know there must be many of you from this locality or area, and I thank you also for coming to hear me.
Tene ta tegendla tene tanda Minitu Foundation.
Degi mingre. Manitou segido. Ngarang rojege mingnona regere. Ngarang mingnona pe dopore.
Tene Foundation ge tene chitang ge ta tanda ngaranzo beke namba sanji bi chulu mandawa tene chitang ge tene nima kaju tene chulu mandawa bombo tene kangchela kangala chitang ge on sena dhamma cheparchi mangbo yore kangala dhamma cheparchi mangbo yore la dhamma cheparchi tenzo ya tene kariri sena ta hinji minji ta ngaransun jitinji komdala manyang pache hinji minji jitinji komdala darwache marabni marabla manyang pache pe kalchembuge dhamma tende yore la tene tenzo manyang pe chirto la tene anala sacha nang tene chuge tsopa mambo tsu tene tenzo ge chuge shawa mambo nang chuge manyampa chongya de be galchembo de delaya che namba ganga ge gasu nawa na tenzola tuji che
What is it called?
It's the Manitou Foundation.
That's what I thought he said. Okay, good. I didn't want to get it wrong. I'd also like to express my sincere gratitude to the Manitou Foundation for its many gifts of land to representatives of various traditions, including the Nyingma and Kagyu traditions of Tibetan Buddhism, in recognition of the fact that we have extraordinary instructions and that the preservation of these instructions for the benefit of future generations is of great importance. And in expressing my gratitude to the Foundation, I want to simply say that by giving the land you have given to us, you make this very preservation a real possibility, something that will happen. And so I want to thank the Foundation for that as well.
Tene ta te tabu ke chue de pe manyamba ta ngaran su chongya de pe gal chimbo re la gal chimbo imbe junsen de khandi jire se na perna ngaran su pe ke namba sanji pe sanji ke sumbe kanjur la pote jalo cham yo re la tene di nang la sidan khan yo re se na yongso zopa tene jitin je khomda dan senchen tamji deji dan dembe tap je dan dunghal dan tar tap je te zo te shada ma to senchen de la na pa chalya senchen de dewa dan thalwar si pe tap re se zawani yo mare chei jong yo mare chasan senchen deji dan dembe tap dan dunghal dan tar tap re te jendo danger segre danger tela poti ni jal hotsam yore la tini te tanda kepatum chutu chimbo tenzu ge sanje ji kai gomban de danger la tenzu ge tanda la ya khari yore se na senchi dewi ge thap dungal tam talu ge thap te khona dinang songja ba ji ma to senchi la ne ba si ge thap na bo che ya de yo mare la tini teacher na 담배 주 된조 되는 나란소 지tin 이제 컴달라 마냥바지 배 갈침보 인지 민지 갈침보래라 되니 대하이나야 로종 동차라 되니 마냥바 대바래 대 마냥바 대바데 가리레세나 메텐주게 단데 나란순 좀빌라나 배 갈침부기 잘라지 레 somne 되니 lumba 소소라 tene tenzu ke sanje je ka tenzu ta tenju tenzu manyamba chong de parala tanda ya maompa la mrab ne mrab la te chong ne manyamba je pe ngaranso ke tene ngaranso ke mrab la te jime mrab la pe kalchewa yin bichirna te ni manyamba chong ya te kalchibure.
The preservation of Dharma is of great importance. For example, the translation into Tibetan of the Buddha's teachings consists of more than 100 large volumes. All of these books are all and only about how to make all beings happy and remove the suffering and causes of suffering of all beings throughout the world. If you look at these books, you will not find a single word in any of them that explains or is about how to harm any being. The translation of the great Indian commentaries on the Buddha's teachings into Tibetan consists of more than 200 volumes. And in the same way, all of these books as well are purely concerned with how to bring about the happiness and remove the suffering of all beings. In these as well, you will not find one word concerned with how to bring about harm to beings. Therefore, these texts, representative of the tradition of Dharma, are a treasure of this world and for this world. In recognition of that, for thousands of years, they have been preserved in many countries and many cultures. And in the same way, recognizing that ourselves, we must continue their preservation for the sake of our own and future generations.
Tene ta te tabu ge tambe chue te ya chitang ge yige poti ge namba te sensi re la tene te kande manyang pa ji si go ge yore se na te ngaranso me indro ge nyam slen me indro ge nyam len chi me indro ge te labjong chi teacher na tene te manyang pa ji chong ya te kal che wa yin bicher na tene tanda sanin dana la chulu kho mangbo tende manyang pa
In a sense, the books are really merely symbolic of Dharma, and the essence or life of Dharma is the actual practice of it and study of it by living human beings, by people. And therefore, I especially want to thank all of you in this community who have been so involved in providing a place where this living practice and study and implementation of these traditions can be conducted and thereby the traditions be preserved.
Tene, Tetsumsina, Tuatan Kindawari, Tuanum Kindawiola.
Do I on the microphone? You know? Yeah. Do I you know? So the console get to know. Dutsugi one is another. Dutsugi one is another.
Oh, yeah.
Do I Lana Gajere, Malana Gajere?
Canticina.
Knowledge.
Oh, yeah. Tualana.
Any questions?
You mentioned something about the future, trying to make people happy in the future, affecting their future. How do you do that?
That the lamsang dewa drop manona deve ju drop to agrees.
Okay.
The kandashi drogere.
Devi Jote, so Kana Rot Lake you are a sena, Tenezo Sana culture you are. Tene Tati Dunhatan Dembate, Korayana, Suinaya, Te, Zo Semte, Zambo, Kuhonte, Yapo, Sembate, Hiwala Juru Tapjida, Melum Ravuchi Siena, Telatene, Tangunig, Semte Tematot Jortunan. Jobola Devata Deba Yungre. Kashi led on Melonga on Katu la Jurmato by Yung cigarette, Yinaya, Zawa country Yungi Yorisena, that he Tini Devata Devi Jota Dembig Tap Te, Tini Lap Ne, Tete, Yamlin Sheni, Sanjita to Pacha Zambochi, Yana, Di Pacha Te, Rimjirim Jipen, Mampala Dunha, Tenting Tart by Yungi. Teacher na Tini Devi Jodon Dempasiki.
Primarily, happiness depends upon one's mind. So, when someone is suffering, the most effective way of relieving their suffering or alleviating their suffering is to cause or inspire them to pacify their minds and develop a state of benevolence themselves. Now, if someone develops this quickly or immediately, then there will be a quick or immediate alleviation of some of their suffering. But even if they do not, if by communicating the possibility of a state of tranquility and benevolence to someone, you establish the possibility of their gradually developing that state in the future, you have created the basis for their future alleviation of suffering.
You spoke about how when helping another, whether causing future happiness by taking away future causes of suffering, or by causing an immediate turn of events, one feels a certain satisfaction. How does one prevent that from becoming sort of prideful and therefore preventing you from continuing to give selflessly?
Data the yana dewa ngusu dropa yana dewe ju dropa latene rang lo tsim gire so lo tsim ba de gawa tsemeke ngo yin so lo tsim ba gawa tseme de drop chana de ngajal de mason wa ke tap khandra yo
Te Ngajal to Mason Tap La, Tati Zo Karisena, Yin Parupo Tela, Jambatan Tempe Go Ne, Rat Jona, Tanda Dungalta Tartabachi Johnson, Tetabaji Majuna, Maon Pala Dungalta Tartabachi Johnson, Tetabaji Majuna, Maon Pala Tapento Unsayo, Somne, Rang, Samba Zampatan Tempache, Yimpicherna, Narang Sent, Sem Tugrela, De Narang Seji Chempondabujilla, Zigio Marella, Teacherna, Della, Najal, Mepatab, 다 지당 그 소시지오 임비체나 깝깔라 나잘단 템바 용 세그레티 이나요 담비 추 코랑 그 냠린데 야포지 세바 있는 드니데 나잘단 템바 용기요 말에.
Well, what prevents the degeneration of the empathetic joy into pride is the fact that your whole motivation in all of this remains benevolent, and therefore it's not really about you or about what you've done from the beginning. For example, your satisfaction can be produced by the thought, I was able to remove or alleviate this person's suffering, or I was unable to do that, but I was enabled to create a situation where their suffering will be alleviated in the future. Or I was unable to do that, but at least I was enabled to establish a tendency to be free of suffering in them, and so on. Regardless of the situation, there's always ground for satisfaction. But the satisfaction is based upon a concern for the person, not upon any sense of personal accomplishment within yourself. Now, nevertheless, as ordinary people, from time to time, there may be a moment of pride based upon something you've actually achieved for the benefit of others. But if you continue to develop and grow spiritually, the pride will not keep pace with the compassion.
Rinpoche, forgive me for asking such a personal question about compassion, but I think it will be generally applicable in terms of many people here who might go through this. I have a dog who is suffering from bone cancer, and she's not in such great pain now in that her mind is still very tranquil and seems at great peace, more peace than she's ever been in. And I wish for nothing more than that she has a future good rebirth. And yet I know that she's going to reach a point where she's going to suffer a lot, and that might affect this tranquility, which you said was the greatest way to provide the future good fortune for somebody. And it's a real dilemma, because oftentimes in this country, I think sometimes for our own suffering, we put animals to sleep. And but I don't want her to suffer in so much pain that she'll go out, in a state of mind that would be great suffering. So it's a real dilemma.
Dereda. Tata de morong chi yores, chimo yores. Chimo tata kanse nagidos. Tata dunga chempo ramendos. Tata de sempa shiva dawa, lopo dawa yores. Inang mashi bata la denden de dunga chempo natsa ga tsawa drapo nyongres. De nyongdo chokna dene sempa chok drogres. Sempa chok na dene de chewa chima de yapo lengamares. Da yangna jik de longpa de loso ta dene natsa ga tsawa de dopo male gona de chimo de sena yapo mare kanzo go.
Tati sena pink mare kariri sena susuge leri la hitsarnaya tini dungante nyongre samatapore la teacherna sena pink mare la tini te nekap dungal manyong tapdabo tini siyayo na te kalchimpure la tini te yendo je malam yapoja tini te yendo la je tambe chuga on the sepike ngandabota teni mikpandabota teni melamdabota de japna teni tige katu la pengrevesena katu la peng mare te yinaya koran soge Kurang Maita, Kurang Nawata, Kurang Semla, Desi, Chuga, Pajan Rabuji, Jungrella, Tini Tig, Mahomba, la Tendin Penker. Teacher na Tindig, Tinitaki Rabu, Tindinaya to be Karchibore.
It seems that putting animals to sleep in this type of situation does not actually help the animal at all, because the cause of their suffering is karmic. And when they're put to sleep, while we no longer see them suffering, they continue to suffer as long as the karma is not exhausted. So it doesn't actually help the animal at all. The best thing in that situation is to use whatever other methods are available in order to alleviate or reduce the animal's pain and suffering. And at the same time, expose her to aspects of dharma by praying for her, by saying mantras and so forth in her hearing, by performing visualization practices for her benefit, and so on. Now, this exposure to dharma will not bring her any immediate or obvious benefit. It will, however, create a slight habit in her mind, which will eventually be of great benefit to her in the future.
Thank you, Rinpoche.
So we're going to stop there.
Zebe